Whew. That's not too bad. And I'm a little late to the party, but it's my party, I guess. So I guess I define when it starts. Yeah, I need to do better. I was supposed to be working better towards 9:30, and this is not 9:30. That's my own fault. All right, so I'm going to sort of jump on the speedwagon here and try to get underway. I don't know that I'll do much more than a half an hour tonight. Maybe. I keep saying that I'll start at 9:30 and stick to a half an hour episode, and I keep starting after 10 p.m. and keep going for an hour and a half. So we'll see what it'll be this night, I guess. But so playing around with some of the games, I'm still on the fence about card game versus a more complex adventure board game, and I'm not sure that I should make the decision, and I should just go for whatever floats my boat on trying to do both of those, and the one that's going best by the end of the week is the one I go with. I think that makes more sense. And I'll have a head start on a second game too. Okay, so what we've got here is the adventure game concept appeals to me. It's just a genre I think I really enjoy in games. Now, admittedly, for some people, the distinction is difficult because, like, would a game like, well, chess isn't really a good example, but like Candyland, is that a adventure game? Because you're making an adventure across the board. You have something similar with Chutes and Ladders to a certain degree, although it's less a themed place. It's more just kind of like it's essentially a map that you're traveling on. So I feel like Candyland is a good example of, like, is it an adventure themed board game? I don't know. It's also been probably 30 years since I played a game of Candyland, if not more. So I might be a little vague on some of that. But the other type of game that I was thinking of working on was, I don't know if that audio fed through or not. Are you getting audio from me right now? Should be. So we should be putting audio. Whoop! Wow, that jumped. Okay. I should be getting sound. I should probably plug in a set of headphones at some point so that I have a better sense of what's happening. Do I have them in here? Of course not. That would be convenient. All right. So I will hunt those down for some other time. Okay. Yeah, I didn't want a repeat of last night. Actually, I wanted to go back in and see if I could potentially edit out the beginning of last night's. Did I do that? I doubt it. Because you can post-edit live feeds at a certain point. Let's see if I can find my channel stuff. So let's see. That'll be interesting to know. But the other type of game that I was working on and making an idea for was a card game. And so card game or an adventure game, you can do an adventure card game, possibly. I think I'm not quite to a point of familiarity with them yet to know how I'd pull that off yet. Yeah. But let's see, videos. I would have potentially an easier time doing a board game and a card game and picking a theme to do both of them at. And I think what I want to do for a theme for them, just because my brain's interested in it. The Game Crafters is the company I used, I believe, once before for producing the first playable deck for my card game a while back. And they are useful for some of the stuff. And it was actually one of the ones, GameCrafter.com was one of the sites I was looking at for my Cyberpunk game, except for I designed every piece of that game to be something that they couldn't do somehow. In my brain, I go, oh, that'd be an interesting idea for a game piece. And this would work great for a great deck of cards. And the board should look like this. And they can't do any of those. But for a simpler standard style game, it might be possible. That could be possibly something I can use to inform the direction I want to go with this. Looking at what they have to offer for board game pieces or card decks, and using that to make the decision on how I structure the game. Game pieces, game accessories. So what do we got? Create your game. It's been a while. They've changed their website a little bit, I think. Make a board game, make a card game. What do you got for card game options? No, I don't want you to pull up a website with information. Videos that play in the background. That's not where I was going with that. Product catalog, I guess, is where we want to look. But the general theme I was aiming for this game would be, I have a mild interest in, some people call it ray gun gothic. It's the old school pulp science fiction, the Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon style science fiction. Just getting a sense of that sort of pulpy sci-fi theme. And I think artistically and thematically, that could be a really fun game to make. I don't know if I'm going to do card or board yet, but I have to really kind of figure out like the card mechanics that I might use. Like my instinct is almost always to do with a card-based game, to do a judge and two other people playing. And that's good for, like, I have this, how do you modify this with what you've got to make something that meets this qualification? So in the case of Runcible Foods, that's a game that's, I put down a piece of bread as a food item, and you put down something like bananas and vinegar to try to make this would be a terrible sandwich. And somebody else, the other player, might put down something like a garlic and vanilla ice cream. Like, that would make a terrible sandwich. And then it's up to me as the judge to decide which one is the worst pairing with my bread card. That's Runcible Food. That's the game I made previously. That style of gameplay where an aspect of it, a big part of it, is understanding that me as a player, I'm not as, like, of the 4 food cards put down, bananas is probably least favorite of mine. I don't mind a banana, but knowing that bananas are my least favorite out of those 4 means that you have an advantage playing to my interests or dislikes. So it makes it a game of knowing the person that you're playing for. And that type of game is a fun party game, and it's a get to know you kind of game. And I can go through, like, when I made my cards for Runtable Foods through the Game Crafter website, you can get multiple size decks. You can get different styles of cards, and you can create your own artwork for the cards, as detailed or as simple as you want. And so you can get some very gorgeous looking cards, and they're decent quality. So card games on there are pretty good. I don't think I've ever tried to use their board game design stuff. I looked through some of it. Domino board, half board, large square board, quarter board, skinny board, 4 by 10 inches. What does that look like? That's sort of like a side placard. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, they're all rectangular still, so I got to keep that in mind. Silver board. Don't know that one. Oh, sliver board. I was like, silver? What? Those are they're almost like bookmarks at that point. Small square, square, strip board. Oh, those are kind of nice. What are the sizes on those? 1 strip, finished dimensions, 2 by 10 inches. So it's sort of like the length of a piece of printer paper, but 1/4 is wide, more or less. It's a little smaller than that, but sliver board is 2 by 8. Strip board is 2 by 10. So they're very similar. The strip board is a little longer. Large square, quarter board, 5 by 5. Half board is 5 by 10. So they're all going to be, like, the max dimensions you're going to get from a board are going to be about 10 inches long. All right. And booklets, that's pretty straightforward. Deck boxes, not worried about that just yet. Custom mini cards, card holders, decks of cards for board games, dials, folding board. So a folding board, how's that different? Okay, so you can get bigger boards. Okay, so accordion board would be 8 by 16. A bifold game board, 9 by 18. Quad fold game board, 18 by 18. And a 6-fold game board, 27 by 18. See how big that looks. Yeah, you could make a full dungeon map for a game of Dungeons and Dragons or something. So that's not bad. So you can get some bigger boards made there. Not sure what yet I'm doing with that. So neoprene mat. Mats. How big a mat can you get? Mats are an easy way to make player aids and gameplay surfaces. Mats are made out of our standard 12-point black core matte cardstock. Can be printed on both sides. Quad fold 10. Looks like the largest you get on that is 10 inches. Play money and document. Custom game pieces. They're cut out on acrylic. I'm pretty sure I could cut out some custom pieces on a laser cutter, honestly. Small punch outs for like coins, poker chips. Strip chit. That's a phrase you gotta say, right? Strip chit. Okay. Medium punch outs. So those are going to be tile pieces. 4 types of items per sheet. They are printed on 60-point thick chipboard. Large punch outs. Score pads. Player screens. Stickers. It's been a while since I looked into some of this stuff. Yeah, I mean, right now the theme I want to, build around is going to be the space science fiction theme of the old pulp fiction. I don't want to say pulp fiction because that's misleading. It's a little more of the Buck Rogers style science fiction game. And I might be able to make some kind of card game where you can get some play like that. Gonna have to figure that out. What the gameplay mechanics are. I mean, a board game, like I don't want it to be like the traditional race board game where you're like Candyland. Your goal is to beat the other players to the end point. Trying to think. I almost want to do it like a cooperative gameplay or a possibly a cooperative oppositional. So you could have a gameplay where like you can either work together or not, and you could change your mind in the middle of the game if it makes more sense. But with that type of game, you have to sort of set up a set of goals for each player, and they may not be the same goals. So a player could do one player's goal could be to mine minerals from the asteroids and earn enough for setting up a colony or something. And the other player's goal can be to harvest water from space ice. And those those two goals are not mutually exclusive, and if you work together, like say somebody's mining minerals and they encounter ice while mining, so you mine, you get 1 water and 3 minerals. Like if you work together and trade your waters to the other player, you can help advance each other. And if you're competing against the board game in some fashion, that if the game wins and you both lose, uh, it's you both fail at your task. You both lose, and if either or both of you achieve your goals before the timer or whatever arrangement you set up for the board achieving victory, then it's a victory for both or either of you. And so that's one way of building a game like that, I think. Trying to figure out what else like I could possibly put together something like that, simply themed. I'd want to give a bit of a flavorly gimmick to it. And maybe do a customizable board. So a series of interchangeable tiles that you can change around. So the game's different every time you play it. And maybe play around with some game mechanics like 2 players would be a cooperative or a competitive. 3 players have the opportunity for an alliance. 4 players, alliances. Maybe have a trade mechanic for not just goods, but upgrades. If this is an adventure game, it's going to be something that you can upgrade your capabilities as you go. And so I think that would have to be something like a research tree, or yeah, there's some interesting mechanics to potentially do there. Now, could I do something similar with cards? I might be able to pull that off. Let's see, what else? Like, how would I do that? That's what I got to try to figure out. What would... Download templates, create your artwork. Warning, step 3 is where people often make mistakes. Yeah. It's artwork, saving and exporting images, make a game project, upload images, set component qualities, proofing your images, ordering the first copy of your game, questions, yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, I'll look through what the resources are available. It looks like the boards, quarter boards, sliver, small square, strip boards, poker boxes, custom mini card stocks, circle shard. Create your own tokens and currency with circle shards. Okay. So those are currency possibilities, as well as mini ship tokens or asteroids, deck. The dials are a kind of interesting device. And the real trick I have to be careful of with this is if I do, go through here and go like, oh, I know I could use this to do this. I could end up building a game that uses 15 different components out of that catalog, which then just makes it an inordinately expensive and complicated game to make and purchase. Like, I want to keep it simple enough that it's a simple, cheap, fun purchase. All right, so large punch outs. Those are hex tiles and medium punch outs are small hex tiles. Okay, so that might be where I get some of that board design layout. What is custom punch outs? Oh, well, there's a thing I'll have to play with in the future. Build whatever your imagination can dream up. So these are custom die cut pieces that you can assemble into. So like this is card modeling. You could build, oh man, I could do a lot of things with that. But that is too complicated for right now, but I will refer to that in the future. Custom large cutouts. It's like if you ever did any of those card model, or you ever do those dinosaurs that are made out of thin plywood that slot together and you build them that way. You could make something like that with that feature. So yeah, if you wanted to do spaceships instead, yeah, I could totally do that. I'm not going to right now because I don't think it makes sense for what I'm trying to do right now. Huh. So, oh, don't do that, brain. My brain's already trying to come up with really complicated ways to use some of these things in innovative and new ways, which is great and all, except for it makes $140 games, which is not where we want to go right now. So I was looking at some of the like the poker chip size things, the small punch outs. So arrow, bullseye, custom small punch outs, the domino chit, large chit, and then they have ring chit. I should probably stop saying that word because it probably sounds funny. But the ring is one that'll fit around other circular token pieces. So you could do, say, if you had a circular spaceship on a poker chip, essentially, and you wanted shields, you could get a ring and put it around your ship for a level of defense. Oh, I could do some fun stuff with that. Small ring is a 0.75. Mini circle. Small circle is a 0.5. Small ring is a 0.75. What's the inside diameter? Yeah, so these are laser cut. They say they might have a small bit of soot. These are all laser cut pieces. Okay. So I could test run a couple pieces like that and just see what the... All right, yeah, so let's see. What do we figured out tonight? Do we call that a pulp science fiction, I guess, is what we're going for? I do want to keep that site open so I can figure out what I'm doing here. And I do think it would be fun to make a product that's available for sale from Game Crafter rather than on my website. But let's see. Do I want to call it Ray Gun Gothic? A little more pulp, golden age of science fiction. was an era where science fiction genre gained wide public attention and many classic sci-fi stories were published. That's where I want to play in. The old pulp era. So Robert Silverberg kind of time frame. Gernsback to Campbell. John W. Campbell, who became legend in the genre as an editor. Gernsback. Like, I mean, I kind of love the genre a little bit. Oh, who else? And the first appearance of Isaac Asimov, John C. Wright, Van Vogt's story, The One Started It All. Robert Silverberg in 2010 essay argued that the true golden age was the 1950s. Development in genre. Space opera came to prominence. Doc Smith, Isaac Asimov, The Three Laws of Robotics, Foundation, Lensman series. I'm thinking there is a story that I'm going to read in the future. I read once upon a time when I was younger a book called Slan, Slan, and it's a very early science fiction, and it has some of that feel to it. The Martian Chronicles, I don't know if Martian Chronicles, Childhood's End of Arthur C. Clarke, Case of Conscience, and Miller's Canticle for Leibowitz. Prominent Golden Age authors. Isaac Asimov, Bester, Blish, Bond, Lee Brackett. There you go. I don't know if I agree with Arthur C. Clarke. Philip K. Dick seems a little later than that. Heinlein, maybe. They feel a slightly different genre. I would say Asimov and Bradbury and Brackett and trying to remember some of the others. Oh, I don't know. This is a pretty sparse example of that. Pulp era. Early magazines. Weird Tales. Do I want it to just be like a space pulp, or is the potential of doing just a regular pulp, like an Indiana Jones and Astounding Stories kind of? I might do that. That could be kind of fun. Amazing Stories, Miracles of Science and Fantasy. Oh, I could have a whole bunch of fun playing around in this genre, but I got to figure it out before I wander around in it too long. I got to get an actual idea. Gernsback to Campbell. I don't know why you won't like that phrase. All right. I do. Let's do a search for Ray Gun Gothic, just for my curiosity, to see if they refer to it as something different. Ray Gun Gothic. I've heard that phrase before. I think that's a little more googie. Ray Gun Gothic is a catch-all term for visual style that incorporates various aspects of googie, streamlined modern, and Art Deco, which are all art styles that I find enjoyable. To retro futuristic science fiction environments. So that's really more of an art visual style that harkens back to the pulp era science fiction with a decidedly space theme. So I guess space pulp. All right, so that's sort of the idea we're going with right now. I'm going to have to delineate whether or not I'm going specifically space or pulp in general. So I guess sort of like a more serious pulp style story with an artistic aesthetic that is ray gun gothic. And I got to figure out the narrative story that I want to play with on that one. And then figure out how to make the mechanics work for that. Now, the mechanics in that case would be for card game or board game, and see what I can make work. And then just sort of, once I've sort of got test runs on those, I can carry one forward enough by the end of the week, hopefully. And at end of this week, I think we're coming up on, on the 21st is Easter, so I know there's some people doing some stuff around this area that I'm going to have to pay attention to. Vacate areas or whatever, so I'm not in the way. So that may interfere with my ability to do some things, but I think I'm going to see if I can have I also thought about doing something superhero themed, but for right now, let's stick with the pulp and the ray gun gothic aesthetic. Ooh. I'm liking more and more maybe going with a card game style for this. The adventure game would be fun. I may still try, but I like more and more, like, I feel like it would be kind of fun to do. Oh, if I could just take like the genre, like the pulp genre, and have like, it's a little hard. It's I haven't quite figured it out quite yet, but it almost feels like I could do a judge type game where the judge sets down a villain, a MacGuffin, and a like master plan. And each player has to put down a hero, and like a strategy or something. And like I'll have to use like basic story outline segments, maybe. I'll have to think about that. Like this could be really, really big. So it would have to involve like a storytelling element, just like like a the mechanism of a story. Like the MacGuffin could be a doomsday weapon or a power source, and the villain uses the power source to power their doomsday weapon to hold the world ransom, and the other players have to put down a hero, um, an object, and a like plan, and that that setup of trilogies, the triptych, is what the each character then has to tell. Like my hero does this, this, and this, and uses this to achieve this and defeat the villain's plan, and you get the MacGuffin at the end. So you collect the MacGuffins. I mean, that's a possibility. Like I'll have to break down what kind of formula this could be a fun game, I think. If I can get the mechanics worked out. This might be a little hard to do. I might end up doing a more simple board game while I figure out how to make this card game work. Because I like this idea. If I can sit down and brainstorm the possibilities out over the next 24 hours, um, I may find out that there's aspects of it that maybe don't make sense for that way of gameplay, and I'll have to expand or work on it at another time. Because I feel like I'd have to test run with some game styles that are similar. So, like a Cards Against Humanity has a combination of this card and this card make a statement. And so there are a couple other games I think that are out there that are similar, maybe apples to apples, where you've got like a scenario that's illustrated by an event and a situation, and you put them together, and it makes a statement of some kind. I have to look at them because I've only played Cards Against Humanity once with family. That one seems a little more random, and so I don't know that that works as well. I'll have to look at apples to apples. And I feel like even those two situations, those two games, I'm going to have to break some of them and build them out in ways that they can't currently work to make a system of rules that work with the idea that I'm playing with in my head. And I think the fun of doing a card game like that is I could start with a Buck Rogers pulp sci-fi kind of game, and then expansion move into other types of pulp storytelling. So a Doc Savage or the Phantom or the early days of Batman. Those types of characters, the Shadow, and those types of stories could be really fun additions to gameplay style for this. Um, so I think it has potential. There's some mechanics I have to figure out in the meantime to make that work with a card game styling. That's a fun idea. We'll see what I can do with that. In the meantime, it feels like it might be easier to do a pulp, sci-fi, space themed board game. And I'll have to think about some of the styles of games that I've played in the past where I can take a few of the ideas for how the play worked and stitch them together in some Frankensteinian creation that gives me the base to work with. So I think I got my theme. I've got my type of game and a couple ideas for style and technique for the game design. Now it's sort of just hashing out rough draft one and building a testable game in the next day or two. And I should be able to get 2 different games up by tomorrow's Tuesday, Wednesday. I would hope by Wednesday night. If not, at least by Thursday night, I'll have at least one playable, testable game, and then try to figure out any adjustments or fixing that I need to do. And I'm starting to think along the lines of, I keep wanting to do keep testing things out and working them out, and I want to just release them, and I can always fix it should be at least playable for most people right out the gate, but I can always do a version 2.0 if I want to make adjustments or expansions later. I'm always one of those people to I used to do it with paintings too and drawings that I did where I would make a piece of artwork and then it's not done. It was good enough. I could pass it off as done. Nobody else would know that I had more I wanted to do to it. And then I fiddle with it and I fiddle with it. And I used to have an art teacher in the school who said you have to reach a point where you say this is good enough. You're not gonna be able to make it uh all the way to the end of the ideas that you have that you could do with it, because you're always going to get more ideas of how much further you could take it. So you have to be able to say, at some point, could I give this to somebody else and they would take enjoyment from it existing in this form? If the answer is yes, then you're done with it. You can do another version at another point where you take it further. But for right now, if somebody else could enjoy what you've made, give them the chance to enjoy it. So I've got to keep that in mind. Yeah, I might be able to take a design for a card game and make a pulp game that covers all genres of pulp that existed. Or I can make a playable game that does a chunk of pulp well enough that people could have fun at a party with friends with it. And if the second version changes the rules enough to include some other things, but changes it so much that it's different from the first version, I just call it version 2. It's okay to do 2 versions of a thing and not have it all work perfectly the first round out. It should work. It just it won't take into account all the things that haven't happened yet. You just can't. So I think that's what I'm going to focus on for the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll see where I am tomorrow. And we're at 50 minutes, so I'm going to call it for tonight. And hopefully I have some ideas to show off tomorrow. All right. Take care and good night. You should be, yep, we're right around. Yeah, that's my brain for me. It's an accumulating mass of snow, I guess. But we'll get there. We'll achieve something. Maybe we will build a snowman. I haven't seen that movie yet. All right, night.